Welcome everybody to day 5 of the Feeding Recovery Eating Protein Challenge. We're excited to be here. I'm Patty Reese, and I'm here with Amy Melinda, my co-host in this adventure of food and recovery and well-being. We are excited to talk about sugar tonight and the other sweet things in life. So we are going to talk about sugar and some of the things that sugar can disrupt in us, but we're also going to talk a little bit about what sweet things we can eat and maybe look at some of the sweet things you want to look at in your life as well too. You know, not just sugar, you know. So I think it's important that we have sweetness in our life. I remember when I was in school at the Institute for Integrated Nutrition, Joshua, who was our teacher back then and the founder, talked a lot about having sweet things in your life. And because I thought it was only going to be about nutrition. And as a health coach, we look at everything that affects your health. And, not having sweet things in your life can affect your health, right? So we'll talk about that as well too. So I'd like to just start, if hopefully nobody's driving. Hi, Jeff. Just mute your phone as you come in. And I'm just going to start with the breath just to ground us. Can you mute him there, Amy? Can you mute Jeff? Yeah, thank you. Okay. So anyone joining us, please mute your phone. We're just going to start with a couple breaths because we're going to talk about sugar. And that can be a bit of a trigger, especially if sugar's your substance of choice. So just take a few deep breaths in. I'd like you to breathe in for about 5 counts. And then just breathe out 5 counts. You can either breathe out through your mouth or through your nose, whatever feels more relaxing to you. So I want you to get into a relaxed state to start with your breath. Again, inhaling through the nose, about 5 counts, and then exhaling about 5 counts. A couple more. And now the next time you inhale, I want you to pause at the top of your breath and then exhale everything out and pause at the bottom. And we're going to do that 5 times. Two more. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, open your eyes and welcome everyone for tonight. Before we start our slides, I just want us to just think about some of the sweet things in your life. And that can be sweets too. So I don't want you to discard anything. We don't want you to discard anything. We want you to just sit with it, like we talked about the other day, just sit with it and how it makes you feel. Does it make you feel comforted? Does it make you feel relaxed? Do you feel loved? You feel happy? And then if anyone would like to share anything that feels sweet in their life, please do that. I'll start because I had the pleasure of being with my 8-year-old nephew's son today. And we actually did a little bit about sugar. Petting and looking at my dog. I thought Christina was going to do that. She has the sweetest dog. Thanks, Christina. And so my nephew's son was here. His name is Bear. And just laughing with him and reading books with him. And we made a tea together with a little bit of honey and mint. And he actually told me that when he has too much sugar, he feels, we talked about sugar, funny, right? He loves sugar. He's definitely a sugar person, as I am. He says he feels, when he has too much, he feels blubbly. He made like this word up, and I was like, blubbly? That's okay, blubbly. But the interaction for me with him and around food too, and he ate some healthy cookies I made, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So that's my share. Just being around him and actually sharing food with him was really special. Anybody else? Sweet things in their life, whether it's food or a pet or.
I'll share,
Amy?
you know,
Okay.
the thing that came, two things. Of course, my dog, because she's just so
Mhm.
darn cute, you know, and
Mhm.
that waggy tail and that cute fluffy face is just so sweet.
Mm.
But something that is literally sweet in my life, and I try to eat them once a week, is I love my sweet baked potatoes, and I'll
Mm.
cut them in half, and I'll put real butter on
Mm.
them, and I'll top them with walnuts. And
Mm.
that is just like such a comfort food. It just
Mm.
reminds me of eating like
Mhm.
pecan pie or something. And it's just
Mm.
so nutritious and so satisfying.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Exactly. So these are some of the healthy sweets too, right? Especially the food sweets that we can get in, the sweet vegetables. Um, so we don't have to cut all the sweetness out. And thank you for sharing that about your doggy too. Anybody else before we turn onto our slides and the sugar? No? Okay. Well, think about it. And if you want to share at the end, we'd love to hear from you. And there's no pressure. This is just a conversation. We're here to be a support to you and to share with you, and you share with us. So, okay, Amy.
Thanks for taking us through that breath work. I feel
Mhm.
so zen. So
Zen, baby.
if the slides get frozen tonight, I'll be like, yeah, we're frozen again. You know? So
Well,
let's
bear with us, folks, because we are there's something with the live stream that has frozen our slides. So I was mentioning earlier to Amy and to Mark that one of the nice things about when you learn about your neurotransmitters and when we have enough serotonin, when our brain is fed and our serotonin is adequate enough, we're flexible, right? We're emotionally flexible. We can go with the flow more. And that's definitely evident in my life because I was very rigid and I'd had more obsessive compulsive disorder stuff that would show up for me. So I'm like, oh, okay, the slides are frozen. All right, well, we'll just wait that one out. So I share that because it's not necessarily your personality or your child's personality. They may need to eat. You may need to eat. Okay.
thanks for that, Patty. All right, here we go. We're going to try it again. All right, we've got the slides up. So this is just a visual of you know, blood sugar, how it's typically supposed to work. Now, you know, why is this important? You know, blood sugar regulation is one of those things. Like, you know, glucose is a major source of energy for our brain, and we want to make sure that we keep our blood sugar stable so that our brain can access the resources that we need to manage cravings and use the tools that we have in recovery. So if you look at this kind of like this blue, you know, this is kind of about, you know, I'm moving, you know, the blue line here is how we want to keep our blood sugar throughout the day. Like if you, when we wake up in the morning, it's been several hours since we've eaten, our blood sugar is going to be low around the 80 milligrams per deciliter. And then we're going to have some food and it's going to come up and then it's going to go down again as we, you know, spend some time not eating. Now, what's typical of the standard American diet, if you think about getting up in the morning, you know, and we've been talking about having some protein. So, you know, we get a nice and eating every 3 to 4 hours and avoiding, you know, some of these simple carbohydrates. We're, by doing that, we're staying right along those blue dots there. But if you think about getting up in the morning and maybe having like that banana nut muffin from Starbucks that's like gigantic and it's got, I don't know how many grams of sugar in it. The top of this line right here, where this is, the top of the first blue, that's going to be way up here, like where the heading of this slide is. And it's going to be like a big red spike. And then it's going to precipitously drop way down because we all know how sugar crashes go. And then what's the next thing we do? We reach for some caffeine, or we reach for something else that's sweet. So we really want to keep our blood sugar stable, more like, along the blue line. If you think, I like to think about the way I learned it was, if you think about a wood stove with, logs, and you're feeding the fire. And if you think about your simple carbohydrates, like the sugary donuts and, cookies and things like that, those are what you would put in like your newspaper, right? You put the newspaper into the wood stove and it goes, and the big flame comes up, but then it dies out really quickly. Whereas, the fats and the proteins, those are more like your logs that you put in the fire, and they keep you, that log is going to burn for a long time. So that's really what we're trying to do with the, with the blood sugar stabilization. And like I said before, stabilized blood sugar is key to managing your moods, your thinking, it impacts your behavior, and it keeps you from relapsing when you've got your blood sugar stable. All right, are you ready for this? I'm going to press slide down now, see what happens.
It worked. Yeah, thanks, Amy. And thanks for that fire analogy. I love that one. It's very visual. And, that's where, we want to be able to keep our blood sugar stable. And that's with the protein and with the good fats. So have you switched addictions, right? And I remember when I was first in early recovery myself, people are a little amused at my story because I was, a certified health coach, and I, went through addiction. It's like, oh, well, it doesn't affect health coaches or yoga teachers or, naturopaths. But anyway, it sure does. And part of that for me was that, I had an unstable brain, even though I was learning a lot about my health. But at the school that I went to, we were not talking about neurotransmitters or talking about addiction. We were talking about quinoa, and we were talking about things that affect your health. And addiction may have come up a little bit, but certainly I kept using as I was studying about being a health coach, and there was this contradiction that kept happening. I was like, well, wait a minute. Well, my weed was organic, and I only drank, organic wine because I knew about the pesticide stuff. I shared with you about that yesterday, right? I'm like, well, I'm not going to have any pesticides in my body. Meanwhile, I'm taking wine in, right? So, and there's justifications, but the bottom line for me was my brain was still unstable because I wasn't doing the pro-recovery diet. Yes, I was having some fish here and there, but I was still drinking, right? And I was still smoking weed. And so for me, once that got put down and I learned about the neurotransmitters and about amino acid therapy and about the pro-recovery diet, that's what shifted my world. And that is what shifted my recovery, hands down. And I was in 2 treatment centers. I did trauma therapy. I had a great family support. So it wasn't that, it was my brain. And it was so nice to know that I could repair my brain. And so can you, and so can some of your clients or your loved ones. But this is about what we're doing here. So have you switched addiction? So anyway, what I was getting at was when I went to my first AA meeting in early recovery, I walked in and I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to think about the drinking, and I saw sugar out there, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, they're serving cookies here. Oh, this isn't right. Right. Meanwhile, I'm drinking, right? No, I'm not eating cookies, but I'm drinking. So there was that, again, that imbalance and that contradiction. But we know that's true, right? So a lot of this is so true in so much of the treatment centers and in a lot of the recovery rooms, because people aren't talking about that. They're talking about their trauma, and they should be. And they're talking about putting down their substances. As we know, when that goes down and they're picking up sugar, their brain's still in balance. So they're still, that's that white knuckling it, right? We don't have to white knuckle it when we feed our brain. It's so beautiful. So many recovering people switch addictions to sugar because the neurotransmitters are still depleted. So here it comes in again, right? So sugar, as we know, and as most of us that are trained through the academy, you know, all of the different neurotransmitters we talked about yesterday, serotonin, dopamine, GABA, endorphins, all deplete when you eat sugar. They may pop up for a little bit, and there's the addiction cycle, right? Oh, I feel better. Sure you do. For how long? Drop down again. And there we go into the addiction again. So it's this, and I see it so much until people get their diet stuff figured out, right? And when the diet stuff gets figured out and the food gets in there, then the stress is navigated. You can't get to the stress if you're still eating stressful substances like sugar, right? So anyway, this is again the starving brain. This commonly leads to mood swings, reactive behaviors, a lack of serenity, the serenity prayer. People say that wishing for it. And meanwhile, they're putting Coffee Mate into their coffee and then adding sugar, right? And they're trying to sit in a meeting and go, I don't feel so good, right? What, and then the fatigue, and then the cravings and the relapse. So what's the solution? We've been talking about it. Eat protein every 4 hours, use amino acids. And we're not talking a lot about that in this program here, but glutamine, 5-HTP, tyrosine, D-phenylalanine to rebuild the neurotransmitters and reduce cravings for sugar and other substances, you know, like cookies too. You know, it could be cookies for you, or pizza or bagels, Cheetos. I used to love Cheetos. There's actually healthy Cheetos, so we could talk about that later, but we're good, Amy.
Yeah, we're stuck again.
Oh, well, we're stuck again. Well,
We'll give it a minute.
Okay, we'll give it a minute. Well, let me talk about the Cheetos, because I remember someone saying to me, do you know that you can light Cheetos on fire? Like, this was years ago when I was studying nutrition. I was like, what? So I was teaching nutrition at a treatment center up outside of Park City here in Utah. And we experimented. They wanted to know, and I did too, because I had never really tried it. And I think it was actually the fiery Cheetos. I don't know if there was a difference, but we happened to have the spicy Cheetos, and literally they caught on fire. So here again, we have to look at, and maybe the Cheetos isn't considered a sugar, but it's in that group, right? It's that cravings of the breads and the sugars. And so whatever that is for you that you go to, you might say, well, I'm not addicted to sugar. I go to Cheetos, or I go to Doritos, I go to the salt. It's still a simple carb. So whenever the simple carb comes in, the body's going, whoa, okay, here we go. Up and down, up and down, up and down. So this is where, again, we come into getting that protein in before the sugar or the Cheeto comes in. Because when we wait too long, we grab the first thing that's closest. Like this. So this is basically a simple carb. So if you can see this, obviously you can see some of these simple carbs.
If somebody could just pause. Yeah.
So this is, again, the simple carbs. We saw this photo the other day. I mean, donuts, sodas. Oh, it's hard to believe I ate a lot of that stuff, and I was so anxious. Oh my goodness. And I think I've shared with you guys, I had anxiety so much in my life. So we don't want those things, right? But are you craving sugar, sweets, or a bagel? ask some of these, think about it. Have you eaten enough protein? These are some of the questions we want you to ask yourself. Okay. Have you eaten enough protein? Are you getting enough fat in? Are you getting those logs in, right? To support you. And I want to say, guys, even just eating vegetables are not going to do it for you. Okay. I know there's a lot of vegetarians and vegans, and there's a lot of folks out there promoting a plant-based diet. And that's fine if that's what you choose. But if you're dealing with an addiction issue and you have a mental health issue, we are promoting more animal foods as much as possible. Clean animal foods. You can still do your nut butters too, you know, if you really are going that route, but you've got to get those in. So don't think you can get it with a green drink. You cannot get what you need with a green drink. You need to get the nut butters in and some of the proteins through tempeh and some of the other vegetarian proteins we talked about. So please, thank you. Okay. Are you dealing with loss? So are you feeling lonely? You know, these are all the things we want to ask ourselves when we keep going for something sweet. We're just like, so yes, it's, are you getting enough protein and fat in, right? Those are the first questions first. Feed the brain first, the starving brain. But then think about, are you dealing with loss? Because we go to comfort food. Sugar's a comfort food, right? And generally it affects our endorphins. It's our endorphins that are affected with loss, with feeling lonely, with feeling sensitive to the world, you know, and our endorphins need a lot of protein. They're one of the longest neurotransmitter molecules. So we need more of that, not less, right? And we know when people are addicted to some of the opiates, like sugar can be an opiate to you, right? You know, it was to me, it was my love molecule with wine. They're probably hand in hand. So think about that too. And these are some of the things, the questions we want to ask ourselves. And if you are dealing with loss, you know, work with the grief counselor, you know, talk to a friend. Loss is really hard. I've had a lot of loss, and it doesn't just like go away, but eating and taking care of your brain and then talking to someone and journaling, some of the tools that we've talked about, and we'll talk about some more at the end on Sunday, are important for us, because we do need to feel stuff. You know, it's about feeling it, and not running to a substance from it. Right. So, okay, and this is our reading label little thing again about our sugar. So as you, and I brought this one up the other night. So you can see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 sources of sugar in this box of cereal. 7. That is not okay. Right? But it sure sells a lot.
It does. It does.
You know, it sure sells a lot. It's just like, yeah, people, you know, love sweet things.
And we don't necessarily recognize it, right? Like there's so many different names for sugar, right? And I learned that food manufacturers are not required to notify you on the label when a product contains an artificial sweetener. They are also not required to note that, quote, sugar is an ingredient if it's listed as a specific kind of sugar, like sucrose or dextrose, instead of just sugar. So, you know, and that just kind of floored me. It's when I started reading more about the loopholes that these manufacturers and big corporate, like it's really angering. But just getting back to like the names for sugar, right? There's some easily recognizable names like beet sugar, brown sugar, cane sugar, juice, corn sugar, date sugar, maple sugar, powdered sugar, turbinado sugar, white sugar. Like those are all like common sense. Everybody knows that's sugar. But then there's some other things that it's like, oh, what's that? Agave nectar, crystalline fructose, dextrose, fruit juice, concentrate, fructose, glucose, corn syrup, honey, maple syrup, molasses, sucrose. Those are all kind of like a lot of people recognize those as being like having to do with sugar. And you
Mhm.
see them, I mean, when you start looking at like your salad dressings, your
Mm.
ketchup, your pickles, I mean, I always knew bread and butter pickles were sweet, but I never realized that there might be sugar hiding out in my dill pickles, really.
Mm.
So it's just, it's amazing when you start looking at the labels where these hidden sugars are. Now, my husband has this, he loves beets, so he'll buy canned beets, and we always buy the same ones. I think it's like the Publix brand. They're just plain beets in water, and he got a different kind the other day. It's like, look, I bought organic. It was like, well, hey, good for you. And I looked at it, and he thought he was doing good. I looked at the label, and it was beets, water, and sugar. Like, beets are sweet enough on their own, and I was amazed to see that, I think it was Del Monte brand, put the sugar into the beets. So you really have to be cognizant of what we're putting in our bodies. I'm going to skip to the next one.
Mhm.
This is a list of like largely undetectable names for sugar. Not a lot of people, like, unless you're like going, through
Mm.
something like this, would recognize
Mm.
necessarily.
Mhm.
Barley malt, caramel, corn syrup, disaccharides, D-tagatose, erythritol, glycerol, golden syrup, high fructose corn syrup, really bad stuff. I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly. Lactitol, lactose, malt extract, maltodextrin, maltose, mannitol, neotame, polydextrose, polysaccharides, rice extract, sorbitol, sorghum gum syrup, xylitol. I mean, the list goes on. And this isn't even all of them. This is just some of the
No.
major ones. And then, of course, the artificial sweeteners are just really, really upsetting to our
Mm.
systems. I can't even
Mm.
pronounce the first one, but you can see it there. And then allatane, aspartame. I don't know what this next one is. Clematis,
Geez,
I mean,
that
this
sounds
is
like
like what we
something
talk
else.
about, like when you can't pronounce this stuff,
Yeah, right.
like don't go there. I can say sucralose. I can say I thought I could say saccharin, but these are just
Wow.
horrible. So there's a note down the bottom here. You can say that, note that sugar is also labeled with words ending in malt, juice, syrup, or OSE or TOL. So if you see those on labels, you can pretty much be rest assured that
Mhm.
those aren't something that you want to be consuming, in terms of trying to watch your sugar intake.
No question. And I want to, thanks, Amy. I want to mention, Christina mentioned on here too, that glycerin in the previous labels actually sweet, even though it's not sugar. So again, these are, okay, here we go again, right? We talked about this last night, like, different names for um, things that are in our foods. And I'm going to confess something to you guys, because I bought this gum, and I thought I had read the whole label to it, right? And some of you might have seen this gum. It's called Pure, right? And so on the top it says aspartame free. I'm like, awesome. Okay, well, so it's got xylitol in it. Okay, well, that's a alcohol sugar. So it may not do the same thing as sugar, but it really wrecks your gut. I mean, the studies coming out on the alcohol sugar. So I'm like, okay, now let me back up a little bit. I've been having some trouble sleeping, right? And I'm trying to like look at what I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of emotional work. And well, I have been using this gum as something I'm going to with loss. I lost my mom a couple months ago, and I actually bought this back at the Whole Foods in Connecticut when I was going through the last few days with her in her life. And I was like, well, and I love chewing gum. I just love chewing gum, right? So I'm like, oh my God, that doesn't have aspartame. Yay, it's at Whole Foods. Yay. Didn't think about it. And but just hold on here, guys, because it's not just xylitol. It's natural flavors, which I didn't see that. That's MSG. I'm highly sensitive to MSG. So no wonder I'm not sleeping or going up and down in my sleep. Not only that, there's a wax in here called caribou wax. What the hell's that? There's a wax in here that's made from a plant that you can use in cars too. And it keeps the candy shiny. And I was like, oh my goodness. So instead of saying mean things to myself, I took the rest of this and I dumped it down the drain, right? Because I have been going to this. Now, why am I going to it? Because I'm addicted to it. And it's a sweet hit right away. And so, and this is what's keeping me up at night. So I'm so happy I found that out, because I was like, well, we're going to talk about sugar. I just want to make sure I have the label on this one right. Okay. And then I'm reading it more. I'm like, oh my. So please, as I did for myself, I'm trying to figure out why my sleep has been so disrupted. And this is why my sleep has been disrupted. And I can still eat protein, which I am, but if I'm putting this in, or I'm drinking, or I'm eating donuts, I'm going to sleep, not me. So just again, remember, please read things and be kind to yourself, and then throw them down the drain. So sweet things on our plate. A little sweet after a full meal with the 3 macros, right? Our protein, our fat, and some veggies, supports the body and soul. So as you can see here, this is a lot of fruit. There's a lot of sweet things that actually help us feel good. And that's what we want to talk about now a little bit, after we know all those disastrous things that are challenging our brains and throwing our brains offline and really disrupting our brains. Interesting. LaCroix flavored. Ooh, I'm going to bring this. Okay, I'm going to come back to that question, that comment, Christina. That's really important, because the LaCroix are out of control here. So let's talk about that at the end. Thanks for bringing that up. Please, any comments you have, put them in the chat so we can bring those up at the end, because we really want to hear from you. So some healthy brain desserts. Remember, a little goes a long way. Fruit, right? Cherries, fruit. I mean, we're out of the fruit season, but we can still get a fresh fruit. I mean, we can still get frozen fruit. And one of my favorite desserts is like a chia pudding, or even just a little whole yogurt with some fruit in it. Dried fruits with nuts, cookies made with monk fruit, stevia. I know some of you don't like stevia. Well, not everybody does. Or a healthy sweetener, gluten-free and nutrient-dense flour. So I wanted to show you these cookies. I showed them, I think, before. But these are, and you will get the recipe for that probably by the end of the challenge, because I've got to upgrade it. So these are, that's made with cherries. That's the morning, that's the evening little treat. And then this one is made with actually cacao nibs. So you can have that in the morning, because the cacao gives a little more energy. But these are basically made with sorghum flour, ground flax seeds, pumpkin to make it really moist, and walnut. And they satisfy that, right? So you can have that sweetness without having, and there's other cookies and companies out there that make it, but just read your labels, and whatever cookies you love, just upgrade them. Protein powder, fruit smoothies, whole yogurt with berries and hemp seed. Upgrade your recipes with real food. So as I just said, the next slide is actually a picture of chia pudding with some nuts. Sweet things in our life. What's that?
That looks really yummy.
Yeah, it looks really good right now, especially. Chia puddings are really easy to make. I love them. So here's
I've never made them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I
they're
have
good.
to try it.
Yeah. So this is just an idea of some calories in some of the natural sweeteners. Raw honey, 1 tablespoon is about 64 calories. Stevia has 0 calories. It's pretty sweet. And so one of the things I want to talk about, when we taste into our mouth, especially the really, really sweet stuff, like stevia can be super sweet, right? And so can honey, but depending on the type of honey it is. So the pancreas still does has a reaction, even if there's 0 calories. So when stimulant comes in, yeah, you don't have any calories going in, right? But you're still, the pancreas is still going, okay, I identify this as sweet. So the insulin thing starts happening too. So that's why a little goes a long way, right? This is all about balance. So just remember that too, that if you're dealing with, obviously diabetes or any kind of pancreatic issues right now, that pancreas is still working when something sweet comes in. It's not saying, oh, the taste buds are going, oh, it's sweet. So then things start happening. The pancreas starts releasing what it needs to release, the insulin. Dates, one date is 66 calories. And I love those things, right? I don't eat one of those dates usually, right? So, coconut sugar, 1 tablespoon is 45 calories. Maple syrup, 52 calories in a tablespoon. So think about what you're putting on your pancakes. Little drizzle. But remember, if you have a little butter on there, you actually don't need as much. Black strap molasses, 1 tablespoon is 47 calories. The basmati glaze, 1 tablespoon is lower calories, depending on its thickness. Banana puree, this is one thing I wanted to share because a lot of people put bananas in their smoothies. So, you might want to just do a little tiny piece of banana because it's one of the higher sugar fruits. Brown syrup is about 55 calories. Real fruit jam depends on the fruit. And then monk fruit, again, is 0 calories. And it's actually our favorite baking sugar, non-sugar. Zero. It's delicious. It tastes a little malty. It's not super sweet either. And we find it really nice. These cookies are made with monk fruit. So there's a little bit about natural sweeteners. And then to finish up here, we started this in the beginning and I want you to think about it again. What are some of the sweet things in our life, right? Hugging children, friends, our pets, as some of you shared, baths with lavender, soft music, silence. Sometimes that's a sweet thing, just having quiet, right? Just being, especially if there's a lot of noise around you and you finally get to that place, it's actually a sweet thing to have quiet, being in nature. And I know many of you feel that, whether you're at the beach or you sit on a rock or you go to the mountains or the forest or you sit near your tree or your bush. Music, sound healing is so powerful, and there's so much coming out about that now too. These are the other sweet things in our life. We don't always have to grab a substance. We can put on some music. We can take a walk, dancing, swimming, golfing. I threw that in there for you, Amy. These are other life. Reading and movies that light your soul. Positive things, not ones that are going to scare you so you don't sleep, right? We don't need any more of that, right? So set that aside if you really want to connect in with the sweet things and balance your energy. Cooking, that's one of the things for me. So I want us to all just think about what are some of your sweet things in your life.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. And I think we can open it up, and there are a few chats that I want to bring up that and then I want to hear from you all. But one of the things, no, that's not what I want. I don't want that. I actually have access. So that's kind of funny. So Christina says on here, hold on, let me come back up a little bit. Okay, so now I'm reading more. So coming back to, not all of these sugars are metabolized as sugar or carbohydrates, but can still impact insulin levels. Okay, right on. And can throw us off. Absolutely. Thanks, Christina. She also said she read an article today saying that there's a chemical added to LaCroix flavored unsweetened soda water. It's not on the label, which can badly affect mood or behavior. Now, here we go. Right. So how many people are drinking LaCroix? You see it all the time. The kids are drinking it. Okay, well, it's not soda. So I'm just saying these are the things that we have to look at again and go, oh, okay. And of course, I want to just go, shame on you to the food industry, right? and to the LaCroix folks, you know. But what we have to do is tell our friends and our families, because they're everywhere. People are walking out of these health food store with cases of LaCroix. So thanks for bringing that up, Christina. I wondered about it. The company actually had to get
outrageous.
sued. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yes, they had to get sued. Good. Dang good. But it took that long. Look how many people have been drinking that stuff for so long. And I wondered about that. I was like, there's something not right about this, because it tasted weird, you know? So if you're going to do soda water, Perrier, or just soda water.
Yeah.
I have a case in the basement. Sorry, Bernadette. I know, right? And then you don't want
Yeah.
to pass it on to someone else. That's the hard
Right.
thing, you know? It's like, well, who do I pass it on to? Well, but yeah, sorry about that.
I mean, there are
Yeah,
ways to
yeah.
pass that on. I mean, if we know somebody who's drinking a case of Pepsi, right?
Oh, there you
Or,
go.
you
There you
know,
go.
and we want to wean them towards something more healthful, you know, we can wean
Okay.
towards, I mean, that's just one idea.
That's
And
a
then
good idea.
eventually, you know, it's a substitute and it's not permanent. It's just a step in the right direction. And then eventually the LaCroix becomes, you know, Perrier or just, you know, nice filtered water.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to go from A to Z, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people can do it fine. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I want to share a Mountain Dew story with you all. And I remember actually talking to Christina about this a couple of years ago, and she was saying there's some chemical combination that they put in Mountain Dew that is, you know, similar to crack. And I was like, whoa. So I have a client friend who was on her second marriage, and this guy, her first marriage was, you know, alcoholic, so she was not marrying an alcoholic. Well, the second guy was a Mountain Dew dude, and he became violent. I mean, holes through the wall. He never picked up a drink, an alcoholic drink, but he was a Mountain Dew drinker. And and it took her a while, but she finally came off of realizing that this wasn't getting any better and his brain was so offline. So this is what happens, right? And they can't put it down because they're addicted to the chemicals in it as well, too, right? So there's where that, you know, a LaCroix would be better for someone like that too, at least to start weaning off. But she's divorced and very happy by herself. I'm like, good, just stay that way for a while now.
Yeah.
So it can be like that, friends. This is what happens when people's brain are so offline. And it doesn't have to be from alcohol or heroin. It can be from sodas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Christina was saying that she likes to mix pure fruit juice with just plain soda water.
Nice.
I like that too. I just recently bought a bottle of the cranberry juice, the unsweetened cranberry juice. And when I bought it, I was looking at it, I really wanted it. And it was like $8, right? For this. And it's not that big of a bottle. And I was thinking,
No, but you don't need a lot of it. It's concentrated.
right, exactly. And I was thinking, do
Yeah.
I really want to spend $8 yet? You know, 5 years ago, I think nothing of spending $8 for like some, you know, super beer that they just brewed at the pub. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't be having just one of them. So I kind of put it in perspective. And the thing, I mean, I still have it because you only need like an ounce to flavor your water. And it really, it gives it a really nice tart, you know, flavor.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I would also say to that too, like, let's all just work on a water challenge too, right? Because you know, drinking water, which I'm not great at, you know, I want some flavoring in there too. And I was a Tab girl. Now, some of you don't even know what Tab was, but I was a Tab girl.
I remember Tab in the pink can, right?
In the pink can.
Yep.
Tab in the pink can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And I thought it was me. I thought it was just me, but it was what I was taking into my body and not taking into my body. So this is where we get to help folks, you know, People are so down on themselves because they don't have their brain fed.
Bernadette says she bought a water bottle that has an infuser so I can add fruit. Oh, that's interesting. I've seen
Oh,
that, but
I haven't seen those.
Bernadette, did you get it like online or at Target or something like that? If you wouldn't mind popping that in the chat, I would love to pick one of those up because I have often thought about it, but I've never actually done it.
I don't
That's a
even know what
great
it
idea.
is. What is it again?
Yeah, it's like when you go to the spa and they have like the cucumber water or something, but
yeah.
it's a way where the fruit doesn't get, I think, mixed in with the water, so it's not
Oh,
like you're
like a
have to
tea
worry about
ball?
chunks.
Like a fruit
Yeah,
ball?
like a tea ball, something like that. So you
Hmm.
don't have to worry about the chunks of fruit coming down, as you're trying to drink it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
One of the um, things that just popped into my head about the water was, L-glutamine is an amino acid that can help with blood sugar, right? And blood sugar cravings. I had this was many years ago. Mother whose child was very addicted to sugar, and she started putting just a tiny bit of it in her water bottle. And I think she might have had a little flavoring in there too, maybe a little stevia flavoring of something, for her to actually drink it. But it cut her sugar cravings really down because she was getting that in. She was also trying to increase her protein, but with children, as we know, they're not always drawn to eating proteins and fats necessarily, especially if they've come up on that. So anyway, you can add a little glutamine to your water if you're really craving sugar, and you don't want to have any. Glutamine will help quite a bit.
I've noticed that for myself. I think I've mentioned it on this challenge before. I mean, I was a lifelong sugar binger. I remember like the first time getting caught behind the couch eating all of the cookies. I wasn't eating the cookies, I was just eating the cream sugar filling out of them and putting them back together neatly back in the little cookie jar. And I couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 years old. So my sugar habit runs deep. I mean, I was the type of person that would go to the, pure maple sugar container in the refrigerator and just take a swig of it. That's the level of my addiction to sugar. And I would say over the last year, knock wood, it was November, I really started paying attention, and my nutritionist had recommended the glutamine.
Oh,
and
nice.
just a little between meals, and that together with things like the the meditation that we did the other day about urge surfing, and really working on that liminal thinking too that I described about understanding, where is this coming from? Does sugar really make me feel good? Is that really true? And then turning the thought around, that can be really helpful. So it takes, and I enjoy things now like raspberries, because I find them sweet and satisfying without triggering, if that makes sense. Because I'm having them with, the walnuts and the whole yogurt. So I get the good fats and the protein together. And I think that, just is something that I've learned when we eat it in balance, like on your slide where you had the heart with all the fruit, and you said this is good after you've had a balanced,
right,
with the healthy fats and the proteins and the complex carbs, a little sweetness is good. So the berries have been doing it for me, and that's, I mean, that's talk about A to Z, right? Like swigging maple syrup from the jug.
Oh, wow. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. I grew up on well, I didn't have candy right away because my dad was a chiropractor, so we didn't have any sugar in our house actually. And this was in the 60s, right? And he was writing a book on sugar. My dad was, holistic chiropractor. So, but he died when I was 10. And so the trauma along with him gone, we were like having sugar all the time. And I would go spend a lot of time. My mom wasn't too stabilized for a while, so I would spend a lot of time at my cousin's house, and they would have Cocoa Krispies and Lucky Charms, and I'd wake up in the morning because I'd be starving because we'd have pasta for dinner. Go figure. I was up in the morning eating sugar. I was like, right. And then I'd eat again in an hour and I feel so anxious. And so this is, did my aunts didn't know? My aunt that I lived with for a while after my father passed didn't know. She was just, that's what she fed her kids. And most of them are not here, actually. You can't continue life just on sugar. You will, not be around long. There's lots of diseases related to it. So we're talking about that mental health issues, but diabetes, heart disease, cancer, it's all connected. So we really want, and the beautiful thing is our bodies are remarkable. We have like a whole new stomach lining every 2 weeks. Like we can regenerate ourselves, and that's a beautiful thing. Not if we're putting junk in still.
Yeah.
They're not regenerating too good. So anybody else would like to share a little bit before we finish tonight? Is there any more in the chat, Amy? Have you picked up any more stuff in the chat?
I saw Bernadette pop the link for the infuser, and then let's see.
Okay.
Here.
Okay.
What do I have here? There's one. When blood sugar drops after a sugar load or too long between meals, adrenaline kicks in, and that is what can.
Oh, right.
What can
Okay,
make you
read that
anxious,
again.
irritated.
Could you read that
Yep.
again with the adrenaline? Because that's important
I'm
for folks to hear. Okay.
Yep, just trying to get all of it here. Mouse is sensitive, bear with me. So
Okay.
when blood sugar drops after a sugar load or too long between meals, adrenaline kicks in, and that is what can make us anxious, violent, or craving. It's the adrenaline. Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Christina, for that. That's important nuggets, man.
Yeah.
I forget about the
and-
adrenaline connection. I just don't think about that, but it's just like we're like, "Argh."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then our brains think it's like a state of emergency, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I don't miss those sugar crashes, I'll tell you. I was one that would get really hangry, and
Yeah.
have some not so proud moments in my life.
Well, forgiveness is a very powerful thing, isn't it?
It is. It is. I mean,
Yes.
now that we understand what's going
Yeah.
on, like, right, who knew? Who knew
No.
any of this?
Right. And so please, be gentle with yourselves, be gentle with your children, but feed yourself and feed your children as
Yeah.
best as possible, right? I wanted to share one other thing that I was so excited about to share with you guys. So my nephew's son who came over, he's a very picky eater and he's a sugar driver, right? So I had made this pesto the other day. It was kind of a creation because I had so much cilantro and I was like, and I love pesto, right? But I didn't have walnuts, but I had pumpkin seeds and I had a bunch of cilantro and I blended that up with this. I chopped up the cilantro, blended it. I added a little olive oil and the pumpkin seeds and just a tiny bit of honey. And it came out, it was delicious. So experiment with some things, right? He loved it. He asked for me to give him some to go. I was like, so this is the kid that just wanted to eat the honey out of the jar. And I said, try a little bit of this pesto. So he's like, oh, I'm not going to like it. I'm not going to like it. And then he's like, I like it. So, this is part of us also experimenting a little bit. And then he put it on a little cracker. And it's got the fat in there too, right? And the chlorophyll. So play around with stuff, and having a little bit of sweet in there was important for him too, but he also got the fat in there and it's actually quite good. So play around with your food, be creative. Some things work and some don't, but okay, it's fun. So
Yeah. Thanks,
yay.
Patty. Yeah, great tip.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap for today. We're right at 8 p.m. Eastern. So be active in the group, ask us any questions, look for your one-pager link with all of the information. And, I know I promised a recipe yesterday for the seafood stew, so I'll get to that over the weekend, write that up and get it in there. And,
Yep. And I'll give you
Yeah,
the cookie recipe too, once I upgrade it a little bit. Thank
good.
you, Amy.
Yeah,
Tomorrow
and
is
heed-
going to be, go
I was
ahead,
just
Amy.
gonna say, heed Patty's words, play with your food. I heard her
That's
say that.
right. That's right. Play with your food. And tomorrow is overcoming obstacles. So we're going to talk about obstacles and recovery tools, but really looking at ways to overcome some obstacles and create self-care rituals for yourself. We also want you to know that the last day of our challenge, we will actually have Christina Veselek on with us. I know she's been on a little bit here, but she's going to be coming on as well with Chef Alex. And we'll tell you more about that on Sunday. He'll be coming into our last day's challenge. He is a chef that worked with a lot of celebrities and athletes, and he loves what we're doing and believes in what we're doing. And he's going to really share a little bit about his story and his work with food for all these years. The last thing I want to say is one of the exciting things about this challenge is at the end of the challenge, we are now starting these feeding recovery meetings. They're going to run every Monday night, the same time, 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 7 to 8 Eastern Time, and whatever it is, Western Time. And so we'll have a link. It will be like an online, you know, how they do online AAs. Well, we're doing online feeding recovery meetings. So please come. Somebody will be chairing it, but we want to make sure that we can keep these conversations going. And what else do we need to do to feed our recovery? So we're really excited about that continuation of our community and support for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Patty. And yeah, tell all your friends and tell us what you need from us. You know, tell us what you'd like to see more of. Tell us what's working, and yeah, it'll be great. So thanks.
Yay.
Does Diane have her hand up?
Oh, go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, we got another minute. I'm not sure if it was up from before. I can catch up with her. And
I didn't see it. Diane, did you want to say anything on here?
Yeah, I raised my hand and I couldn't figure out how to get myself back to.
Okay.
okay.
But I'm interested in those meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I have a friend who's interested in going to the meetings
Nice.
as well. I was talking to her about these classes today.
Yeah. Nice.
All right. Great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It'll be less formal. We're not going to have a PowerPoint. It's going to be like this. We're going to be talking like this. That's all.
Yeah.
So it is going to be like a meeting where we talk with each other. So it won't be class-like. It'll be community.
Yeah.
You know.
Sharing ideas.
Absolutely. Sharing ideas. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Great.
Thanks so
I'm
much.
looking forward to it.
Me too.
Wonderful. Okay, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bless you all. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Ciao, ciao.
Okay. Bye.